Rowe. Thank you for tuning in to my channel. I played just a little bit of this song called Cutie Pie by R&B group One Way. Now, that was a synth bass line on that song, but you can get pretty close to it with the Mu-Tron 3. So we're going to discuss all the ins and outs of owning a Mu-Tron 3, using it professionally, and trying to get the most out of it. So the first thing that I believe you need to do with the Mu-Tron 3 is make sure in this position with this rocker switch on low and the bottom one on up that you can kind of get close to that bootsy sound. You know, it's not a quacking sound, it's more like a bubble funk. Now, this is extremely important. When you've got this thing hooked up to an amp and you've got your amp volume up and everything, do not turn off the off and on switch. You'll get a loud pop to your speakers. What I generally do is either turn the amp volume all the way off or disconnect it completely and then turn the off switch, the on and off switch off. You can also turn your gain control all the way down. That will minimize any kind of pop that you might have. Now, the next thing to consider, if you spend your hard-earned money on one of this vintage, think about it, the thing is like 49 years old. Some people that sell these things claim they've refurbished them, they've cleaned them, oiled the controls, all that kind of stuff. Well, if you get your Mu-Tron and it sounds scratchy, and if you look at the controls here, the jacks, and they're all rusted and everything, here's what I suggest. I'm going to use my beater model here to describe it. Get you a can of Caig De-oxit, K-I-A-G. This is a wonderful electrical cleaner. Put this down. Get your instrument cable, remove it from your Mu-Tron, and then put the plug like on a piece of paper and saturate the male end with the De-oxit. And then all you got to do is just rotate this inside your jack. Get in there, kind of do this, pull it out, do it again. And then once you've done this, especially the first time that you've done this on a Mu-Tron, wipe off that plug and see if you've got any gray oxidation, you know. And if you do, you know you got some of it out. The other important thing to do is clean both the jacks, clean the input and the output. After you've done this, let it sit for 2 minutes at least before you turn the thing back on. And you should notice an improvement in the sound. I mean, this stuff on the label, they guarantee that it'll give you cleaner audio, clearer video, reliable data, you know, whatever you're using it with. But the cleaner audio thing is, it really does what it says. Now, if you really want to be thorough with this, clean the jack and your bass with the same stuff. Use the same thing, the same principle. Get yourself a little piece of paper or towel, whatever, saturate the plug, rub it in and out of the jack a few times, and then let it sit for a couple of minutes before you play it. That way you're going to get the best conductivity with the unit. Now, if the controls are dirty, you got to take this thing apart, and I'm going to discuss that on another video. But if you've never cleaned a pot before, they all have, you might want to zoom in on this, a little small, almost like a square hole in the pot. And that is where where this goes. You're going to have this connected to your De-oxit. And get it in there good, because sometimes when you spray it, it'll just blow off. But as you get it into that little area, just give it a burst. And that's going to enable you to clean all the wipers inside the pot. Now in the Mu-Tron, I have not taken mine apart in a while, so I can't remember. I think it's the actual pot is sitting on top of the motherboard where you can actually get to this. Now that brings me to something important with this De-oxit. They sell it in 2 different types of cans. One of them has got this permanently attached device on it. This is nowhere near as flexible as this is. This is much easier, like when you're working on a bass or an effect, you can get into these tight little spaces and get these things cleaned. And it makes a huge difference. So I prefer this to that one for this type of thing, you know. And this is also good. You can clean the jack on your speaker cabinet. It's good for all types of things, but it will really help these things. But then if you do get in there and clean those controls, that makes a huge difference, you know, because you've got a better readout on the wiper. So now let's get to something also extremely important if you're playing with a bass of these things. At the top, it says, you've got this knob that says LP, BP, HP, 3 different switches. LP is a low pass filter, and that's what you want for bass. If you put it on the BP or the HP, it's going to start sounding more like a mosquito to you. You know, it's not going to have that nice fat low end that you're always going to want. Now the other thing, like these settings that I've got on this unit right now as we speak, that's a very common setting for like the bootsy tone, depending on your bass. I know one thing you're probably wondering, okay, what about the pickups? What about active versus passive basses? These things were probably built for passive basses because there weren't very many active things around back then, but they sound great with either one. One of the problems a Mu-Tron has is when you engage the effect, it's almost 3 dB hotter than your straight signal. Now, if you've got a passive bass and you don't have a lot of leeway with your headroom on your volume control, once you step off of the Mu-Tron, it's like you've left a hole, because then you've got to scramble and try to get your straight sound back up to where it should be. Or when you step on it, if it's too loud, then you got to turn your bass down. That's one of the problems. You kind of have to learn how to deal with all that so you can have a smooth transition from your straight sound, to whatever funk sound you need. Now, the next thing that's important are these rocker switches. Okay, right now I've got this in the low and the one below it in the up position. Here is another popular sound. Let's see here. Notice how much different that sounds. And then you've got this, which is more, to me, more usable for a finger type approach. To be honest with you, not one of my favorite sounds. I like the treblier sound here. Sounds great with an octave divider. And then on this particular Mu-Tron here, it's depending on the room that you're in, that can work, and then other times it can't. To me, these things are very sensitive to room acoustics. There's been some places where I just decided not to use the pedal because it just wasn't sounding that great to me in the room. Other times it sounds so good you can't believe it, so you got to work with these things. So this is going to be everything for today. Remember, if you get one, clean the jacks, and then when you have it plugged into your amp, when you're getting ready to turn the thing off, either turn your amp off, turn the volume down here, make sure nothing is on when you flip that switch to off, because it is a severe pop. It's like I said, it can damage your speaker. So other than that, make sure when you get one, especially if you buy an old one and you spend all that money, make sure that this sound where you have it in the low here and the up here, that you can get close to that bootsy sound, because some of them won't do it. Now, last but not least, if you have a Mu-Tron, or if you're thinking about getting one and you're not really sure about, who to listen to try to learn how to use it, I suggest the very first Bootsy Collins album, Stretching Out in Bootsy's Rubber Band. You can see the star bass is when he first got it. It doesn't have a lot of rhinestones on it. It's only got one pickup and it's a humbucker. So this also tells you that if you got a bass with a humbucker in it, it might sound good with a Mu-Tron. You don't know till you try it. But anyway, if you listen to this, I mean, he was the guy that put it on the map as far as using it on recordings. He's at least the most well-known. Now, and there's another person that I recommend. What did I do with it? A bass player named Nathaniel Phillips. I have the cassette, played in a group called Pleasure. You can get this on a CD. It's called Future Now. He uses a Mu-Tron very, very well. I mean, he's a consummate player. His use of a Mu-Tron, it's excellent. So this, and then I think the first Bootsy album, those two, that'll give you plenty to listen to and start learning, you know, maybe what you want to do with it. Another thing I highly suggest is that you do not take a Mu-Tron 3 to a singer-songwriter gig. That's not going to work. They're going to look at the thing and freak out, you know, wondering if you're going to, you know, make a quacking noise or something. So I think it's primarily a funk tool, but I'm sure there's other people that use it for other things. Now, if you like this video, I plan on doing some more of them where I'm going to show you what it sounds like when you run it through different effects, and then the last one will probably be taking it apart. It's easy to take it apart, trickier to get it back together due to the way the thing was designed. It's something I really don't enjoy doing, but I do know how to do it. So that's it for today, and I think I'm just going to play a little bit more.